Test. So yeah, looks like I'm good. Okay. I'm Phil Wyman, and this is the Wild Theology podcast, where the world, the humans in it, and God are all wilder than we've been told.
That's your intro.
So, you'll get philosophy and theology and crazy stories that come from 30 years of pastoring,
Boring.
20 years of festival work,
Whatever.
and the mud and blood of wrestling with the living in spaces angel spirit of trail.
Trying to sound interesting, are we? Yeah, you think you got something to say?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the problem, dimwit.
Look, I'm a lot smarter than you think.
Yeah, you tightened your shoes this morning.
Whatever.
We're
Phil Wyman, and this is Wild Theology, where you get to argue with your own ideas.
And lose.
That's the point. A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches. The proverbist who wrote these words highlights the importance of doing good and developing a good reputation through our actions. Yet many of us would prefer to have the good reputation without the hard work of earning it. Consequently, we are making names for ourselves by changing our names, seeking titles, identifying with a distant heritage, speaking about ourselves as winners, or somehow finding ourselves in other ways. Our world is passing through a variety of renaming exercises. In this short series entitled The One Who Names Himself, we consider the social ramifications of this movement to rename ourselves. Russian literary theorist, philosopher Mikhail Bakhtin believed that other people know us better than we know ourselves. Consequently, another is able to name me better than I can name myself, because they see things about me that I do not see. They know things about me, things hidden to myself, but known to the world around me. In Bakhtin's view, the person who names himself is a pretender. Ruth Coates discusses this in her book, Christianity in Bakhtin. Quote, "In Bakhtin's universe, one cannot name oneself, and all autonomy is falsely conceived, for life depends upon interdependence." Unquote. Though I don't necessarily think that every person who chooses a new name is a pretender, I do wonder if it is becoming problematically narcissistic that we live in a world where people regularly name and rename themselves. In a lukewarm call for an encore, Kanye West announced to the massive crowds at the headline show in the 2015 Glastonbury Festival that he was, quote, "the greatest living rock star on the planet," unquote. A few short songs before this declaration, during his one-man show under enough lights to film a remake of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, he led the audience in a sing-along of Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. He forgot the lyrics, he sang out of tune, he let the audience hit the high notes he could not reach. His performance became a mockery of one of the most iconic songs of all time, sung by Freddie Mercury, one of the best, if not the best, rock and roll voice of all time. Kanye's self-declaration is a model of the times in which we live. Like sports heroes who play violent variations of children's games while trash-talking in mock acts of bravado and machismo, Kanye merely modeled the falsely self-satisfied dynamics of our culture. Yet, the more we follow this pattern of self-aggrandizement, declaring our own worth, the more we appear to rely on medication to counteract depression, the more self-help books we purchase, and the larger the fields of psychology and psychiatry grow. Somehow, the more we declare who we are, the less we seem to know about ourselves. It is as though we have become dark clowns, mocking our own existence. Like Heath Ledger's Joker at the end of The Dark Knight, we are the Joker, but the joke is on us. We thought we had the world and our place in it figured out, but the story does not conform to our expectations. On June 23rd, 2016, 30 people were injured during a Tony Robbins firewalking exercise. Attendees to his seminar were videotaped saying that those who were injured did not follow procedures to place themselves in the proper frame of mind to walk across the hot coals. According to some of the unhurt attendees, it was the fault of the injured that they could not actuate the mind over matter magic act, which Tony had prepared them to perform. Tony Robbins' fire walking experience has nothing to do with mind over matter mysticism, or believing in yourself and telling yourself that you can do anything. It's simply a matter of physics and technique. The carbon to which the hot coals are reduced is a poor conductor of heat, and so, if you pass quickly enough over the coals, you can walk on them and not be burned. At some point in the passing of thousands of participants over hot coals, someone is likely to break from the proper technique, dig their bare toes into the coals, and end up with embers between their toes. And in this case, 30 people went to the hospital. I had the opportunity to see Tony Robbins up close at the Boston Real Estate Wealth Expo at the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center in 2006. The convention donated $10 each hour, worked to nonprofit organizations that brought volunteers to help act as staff for the convention. Our little church had 8 volunteers who donated almost 20 hours each. Gerardo Picariello and I were 2 of those volunteers. Gerardo is a small, wiry, energetic Italian man living in Lynn. He has an accent as thick as your grandmother's spaghetti sauce. Gerardo and I worked together at the entrance to the VIP section. The important people section was directly in front of the stage, and the ticket prices were significantly higher to place your butt in the VIP zone. Tony Robbins spoke on the next to the last evening of the event. He was the headliner for the evening. The crowd came early, and they came excited. The room was buzzing with anticipation, because in the self-help and actualization movement, Tony Robbins is the world's biggest player. Robbins worked the crowd of over 5,000, giving them exercises and acting happy to see someone. First, they were asked to say hello to a person seated nearby whom they had never met, but Tony gently castigated them with his huge, perfectly toothy smile. What kind of hello is that? Through a series of hellos growing from excitement to wild abandon, Tony Robbins took the crowd from a polite group of New Englanders to a raucous, screaming party. First, they were to imagine they were saying hello to a dear friend. That, too, was not enough, so they were asked to pretend the stranger they only just met was a best friend from high school they had not seen for years. That, too, was not as emotional as Tony Robbins wanted to see, so they were asked to imagine this person they were greeting was the love of their life and they had been apart for months. This, we were told, was the way to greet customers if we expected to get anywhere in business. In each of these mock greetings, the room grew noisier, happier, and wilder. Meanwhile, Gerardo and I were assigned to be cheerleaders for the crowd in the front. We ran from participant to participant, hugging people and encouraging the wild abandon. Between each hugging exercise and during the wild jumping up and down, Gerardo would run to me and with a huge smile on his face say in that thick Italian accent, "He no say nothing. He no say nothing." Then Gerardo would run around faithfully performing our task as cheerleaders for the crowd and return to repeat with comedic chagrin, shrugging shoulders, and a disbelieving laugh, "He no say nothing. He no say nothing." Gerardo nailed it. In that spaghetti sauce thick Italian accent, he expressed my own feelings better than I could have. We both wondered why people paid tens of thousands of dollars for such egoistic cheerleading. In the case of one Tony Robbins client, someone paid $1 million a year for day and night direct contact. Steve Salerno's book, Sham, How the Self-Help Movement Made America Helpless, outlines the shallow nature of the American self-help movement. Tony Robbins is only one of a plethora of examples of how we are caught up in declaring that we are winners, that we can do anything. We dish out billions of dollars each year to listen to people persuading us that we can do anything we want if we put our minds to it. But when we do not quite reach that goal of becoming a millionaire, ascending the pinnacle of the business world, accomplishing our artistic dreams, or becoming president, we grasp frantically for the next book, which the publishing industry knows we are likely to buy within 18 months of the last book we read on the same subject. We are becoming regular consumers and perhaps even addicts to the movement of ceaseless self-profession and self-promotion, and to the habits of naming and renaming ourselves. We are winners. We can accomplish anything we want to put our minds to. We are worthy of receiving everything we want in life. We can become anyone we want to become. Over 300 million people can one day be President of the United States if they put their minds to it. Or so we are told. If we look into the scriptures to see the traditions of naming, we find that Abraham, Sarah, Peter, the Apostle Paul, were all renamed. But we also find that it was not they themselves who named themselves, but it was God who named them. Of course, God, of all people, knows us far better than we know ourselves. And so his naming of an individual makes complete sense. When we're born, we don't wait until a child is old enough to name themselves. The child is named by their parents. I certainly believe that there can be healthy expressions of renaming, and that benefits can be found within the self-help and actualization movement. But perhaps we should be careful about self-naming, lest we become like Mikhail Bakhtin's version of the one who names himself, simply pretenders. Buddhist philosopher Alan Watts put it this way: defining oneself is like biting your own teeth. I'm Phil Wyman, and this has been the Wild Theology Podcast.
Self-naming, are we?
Yeah. The finger picking in the middle of this was me on my iPhone. And the bells you heard in the background were chimes from Pappy Fisher's porch in Cary, North Carolina. We're doing this as we're on the road. And we hope to see you next time.
You really think anybody's coming back?